Hey everyone, this is a quick video, 30 seconds. Just take a quick listen to it.
There's no question that our best, strongest pain medicines are the opioids, but these are the same drugs that have a reputation for causing addiction and other terrible things. Now, in fact, the rate of addiction amongst pain patients who are treated by doctors is much less than 1%. They don't wear out, they go on working, they do not have serious medical side effects. And so these drugs, which I repeat are our best, strongest pain medications, should be used much more than they are for patients in pain.
Hey, this is Frankie Abbruzzino, as I said, with the Uncensored Report, scoop news for the local folks here in Sarasota County. The video is playing up at my top right screen just for visual effects, but this is a doctor, a scientist, but with Purdue. That was 1998. Years after they originally came out and was saying that it's the cure-all, end-all for opioid addiction, or for pain, for pain. And what got me going on this is I saw this new bill that came out, which I'll cover in a second, but I was watching Anthony Bourdain, one of his episodes where he was up in Mass, where he went back to the city where he got addicted to heroin. And he was talking to a lot of individuals, and they played a video with this character that you saw from Purdue, basically saying that Oxycontin isn't addictive. It's going to cure all, end all. You had a lot of a doctor on there that basically said they were encouraged and rewarded for pushing out the pain pills, and that was the best thing that could happen in life. And many of us probably recall that. I personally don't. I think I've taken one pain pill that was heavy because I threw my back out for like a week, and I took half, and I realized the how someone could get addicted to it, and I have never taken anything since then. That was years ago, like 20 years ago. But I guys, we're going to talk about that because scientists, I live here in Sarasota County, and we're dealing with red tide. It's bad. And a lot of these forums, you have these scientists like Moat, and they're getting all pissy. Their panties are getting in wad because we dare question their integrity. Because individuals question the money. Mosaic used to give them a lot of money, and they question what, the ties Mosaic has, big sugar and stuff, and phosphate and all that stuff, phosphorus to the red tide, the algae blooms, and all that stuff. And they get upset. How dare you question our integrity? We're scientists. Who do you think you are? You get that a lot in different professions. Officers, they'll go out. Most are upstanding individuals, but every day I put out stuff where you find bad apples. But how dare you question an officer? And then a lot of these bad apples tend to get away with stuff. These scientists, like these guys with Purdue, how dare you question us? And they get away with pushing opioid and causing one of the biggest health factors or health issues in the United States and across the world, and nothing happens to them. And it's happening once again because the scientists have stepped up, and their lobbyists are out there. Corporate America, Purdue's, everyone, all these pain pill pushers are lobbying to have their information put into, or their lobbying to dictate the direction that a bill had gone into, a bill which goes by the acronym of STOP. It's a Senate bill, and it's to combat opioid epidemic, but a lot of people view it as just a handout to Big Pharma, and we're going to explain why. Basically, it passed 90-1 unanimously, essentially, and it's the Synthetics Trafficking and Overdose Prevention Act, or STOP. And basically, some of the stuff it requires is for the U.S. Postal Service to, keep better electronic records of shipments, foreign shipments in and out, which they already do. You see it on Drugs Inc. and all these other shows all the time where they're basically doing that. It just gives them a little bit more latitude. It would fund more recovery centers, which can be a good thing, and it can be a bad thing. There's a lot of recovery centers that are just up and running just for profit, and they're doing a haphazard job. I posted a few months ago where one up in Bradenton, they had 10 individuals that overdosed. It's, some addicts have told me you get more drugs there than anywhere else, and depending upon the facility. So there's concerns there. But the biggest one here is that the bill would also fund the treatment and increase availability of specific pharmaceutical drugs that are used to treat addiction. And ultimately, who's going to benefit from this is Big Pharma. This arrangement is all about Big Pharma. You got to think, what the hell were our politicians thinking when they went out and thought, hey, this makes sense. Let's treat addiction with more drugs. And here's the crazy part. It's not just more medication. It's more opioids. But the scientists say, don't worry. Don't fret. Don't fret now. This new opioid, although it's addictive, although it'll help with the pain, guess what? It'll help stop your addiction to pain pills. But it's an opioid, but it's not as bad as something like heroin. Sure, it's strong. Sure, it might be addictive, but it's weak in comparison to heroin. I don't know if that leaves me with a comfortable feeling. Does it leave you? So Big Pharma is ultimately the driving force here behind this, behind the opioid epidemic. We all know that. They've recklessly marketed the addictive products out there. It's led to staggering rates of opioid addiction, deaths, financial destitute. It's ruined many, many lives out there. You got a few states, counties, cities, and even hospitals. This week, I put out on my medical page and on LinkedIn how Sarasota Memorial has joined some other hospitals in going after and suing Big Pharma for this whole addiction, this whole push that they had, this whole scheme, this long-term scheme, where they misled doctors, they misled patients. They went out there and they stated, like this goof in this video, the benefit of opioids, how it will improve your body functions. You'll feel great. Oh, you feel great, right? And the risk of addiction, what did he say, 1% of the people? I beg to differ. We all know that the addiction rate is a lot higher. And so what this bill does is fund research and recovery centers, like I said. It doubles the amount of, and I'm going to say the amount of the name of the pill, and then I'll start calling it the B pill because I'm going to slaughter the name. But it basically is intended to double the amounts of buprenorphine, the B pill. This is something that's being prescribed. It's benefiting Big Pharma. It's being prescribed to cut or curb your addiction to opioids. But here's the thing. It's not just a drug. It's an opioid medication. So they're treating your opioid addiction with more opioids. Does that make... Am I the only one that thinks this is just crazy bullshit? It's ridiculous that our lawmakers would go out and propose treating opioids with opioids. And this B pill is considered what they call a partial opioid antagonist. And that it's safer and less addictive than, like I said, heroin. But they're suggesting that people take that instead of Oxycontin. And when they do that, there was a comparison, I think it was Natural News. And they said doing that is like suggesting that an alcoholic drinker who drinks some beer or go out and drink some beer instead of drinking vodka. You see what's happening here, right? And this B pills and that barely just essentially the next big wave of Big Pharma pseudo cures for the opioid epidemic that they helped to create. Before the B pill there was naloxone. Naloxone was supposed to cure the opioid abuse. What was it, just a year or two ago? But the recent research shows that the increased access to the drug actually created more overdoses than it prevented. Again, we listen to the experts. And how dare us if we even think to consider questioning the experts? You can't do that. You can't question them. You're chastised if you do. They're scientists. After all, it's all about integrity, and money would never sway them. So you got the FDA out there, and they're carelessly out there approving these highly addictive drugs while putting the kibosh on cannabis or medicinal marijuana, natural solutions. And ultimately, what this move is to make the B pill more valuable out there to serve the big pharma industry's financial interest. Big government, if they cared at all, about the health of us, their constituents, they would stop putting a premium on this types of stuff, this corporate interest that's out there, these individuals that are out there pushing this B pill. So is it a cure? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not buying what they're saying. I can't imagine, like I said, an opioid curing an opioid addiction. And you know what they've done too is a lot of changes. In Florida here, few years ago, we were the drug mill center of America. People used to come here get their pills left and right. And they put in new changes, and those changes drove up the cost of the pain pill out on the streets. All right. Then people started going to heroin because it was a lot cheaper. I'm talking about here locally within this area. And then heroin started going up the price of it. And I was talking to Bell Bond's friend of mine, and he's like, yeah, heroin's too much anymore. So a lot of the people I'm belling out are meth heads. And they go out to these, these tent cities like we have here in Inglewood, and they go on drug sprees. They all hang out together. They all shoot up their meth or smoke it. Most of them shoot it up for the best pleasure. And so this newer law, which just went into effect, which makes it a lot more harder to write these prescriptions, makes it a lot more difficult for doctors to go out there and prescribe it. They put in these 7-day standard lines, is even making it more difficult. And what you're going to do is push more people out that door into getting these street drugs. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of all of it. So what's your thoughts on this? On this stop? This new bill that passed unanimously, this Senate bill. Have you heard of it? Let me know. This has been Francesco Abbruzzino with the Uncensored Report.